And now hear from Mahmood Kooria from the University of Edinburgh, and then we will take questions on the two papers at the end, because I think they will intersect very nicely and hopefully enable a broader and a more enriching conversation. So Mahmood, first of all, congratulations on your award and your book. He's going to be speaking on Scripting for Reform, Vakkom Moulavi's Al-Islam.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for the invitation. It's also a great honor to be here. I was supposed to participate in Zoom. It rarely happens the other way around, that I'm participating in person instead of Zoom, mainly because of the kind invitation from Professor Dilip Menon and Sajida Bashir, and also Hari, the three great organizers of the session today. I must confess that I am not, and also before starting the actual confession, I must confess that it is very difficult to start or to speak immediately after Professor Dilip Menon, who has given such an erudite, always has been giving such an erudite overview of the world that someone like Vakkom Moulavi have lived. But my actual confession is I'm not a specialist of the literature on princely states, nor on Vakkom Moulavi. Mostly my specializations are on the period before modernity, before 1800. Whatever happens after 1800 of Common Era, I find it less interesting. No offense to the modernists among historians here. But still, this is a response to the invitation from Professor Menon to engage with the kind of works that Vakkom Moulavi has done. And mainly looking at one, this is more or less like a footnote to the detailed lecture that Professor Menon has given, mainly looking at one journal that Moulavi has published, which unfortunately has attracted very less attention. Dr. Bashir mentioned that Moulavi himself has attracted very less attention. Despite of that, his one journal, Al-Islam, which was mainly because it was in Arabic Malayalam. So those who could read Malayalam could not read this particular journal, mainly because it was in Arabic script, and those who could read Arabic also couldn't read it because it was in Malayalam. So my paper is mainly related to that. I'm mainly interested in the scribal practices. This is something that I have been doing for some time now, looking at different writing practices, mainly looking at the different ways in which Arabic itself has been written. And Arabic, the script, more than the language, the script itself can be identified almost like a global South script. Because in Africa and Asia, this was this script that was used. At least in Africa, we are later this year, we are organizing a panel in Senegal on the Arabic script. And in Africa alone, there are at least 80 languages which used Arabic script in order to write different African languages. The same goes for Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, like Al-Khamaido, as well as Arabic Malayalam in Kerala, or Arabic Tamil, and Javi, Pegon, and so forth in different parts of Asia as well. And this was a very rich literary, scribal, cultural tradition. And this is something that I have been looking at. And within Kerala, there are many different varieties of Arabic script. And in Al-Islam of Moulavi itself, we find this multiplicity of scripts that he employs. And this is also part of a conversation that he has as part of the wider scribal practices, either intentionally or unintentionally. But this is something that I'm interested in, and also I'm interested in the question of gender dimension and script particularly. Before coming to the question of script, the gender, mainly because of my ongoing work on the matrilineal Muslim communities, or the matriarchal Muslim communities in the Indian Ocean littoral. we know that all these Marumakatayam communities, right, in not only in Edawa here, but also in different parts of Kerala, but also outside Kerala, in Lakshadweep, in Karnataka, and so forth, as well as in Mozambique, Comoros, and many other places. So I'm interested in the question of how religion and gender sort of come together in the Indian Ocean context, particularly looking at the negotiations of religious law, particularly Sharia. And in Vakkom Moulavi, this is also something very interesting. Initially, he ignored the question of script plus gender, but eventually he realized that in order to communicate with the mass of the Muslim community that he wanted to quote-unquote reform, he has to employ the script in order to address the women in the community, but also the majority of the community. So while I talk about gender, I also must mention this sort of conversation that we have been having with Professor J. Devika and others. There's a bit of an audityam in this panel where, while speaking about gender, there's hardly any, in this panel at least, there's not much representation of women scholars. And there's also a problem, not only in this panel, but also earlier with Dr. Ashraf sir. We had a different panel, I think 3-4 years ago, on Makti Tangal, where again, in most of the reformist discourses, quote unquote, again, reformist discourses, the issues of gender is the most repressive dimension that we come across. For example, Makti Tangal was very patriarchalist when it came to his Nari Narabhijari, one of the now controversial, but at that time definitely not controversial, one work. But Moulavi definitely is very advanced in that sense, especially addressing the question of gender and the ways in which he wanted to sort of reform the women readers and women members in the community. That is, I must say that it is very outstanding for his time, the kind of engagement. And that is something that we clearly see throughout all the issues that we have from Al-Islam. So, yeah. And before I go on further, I would like to express my vote of thanks to especially Sajida Bashir for sharing the issues of Al-Islam, which has been digitalized by Vakkom Moulavi Foundation Trust, which will be very much useful for all the future scholars who are interested. And I also gather that they have digitalized Al-Muslim and also maybe Deebiga also. So all of these would be a great treasure trove for the new generation of scholars. And she was very kind to share all the files with me. So my research is based on this paper, which is a very preliminary take on reading these 5 issues that I was fortunate to access through the support from the foundation, Vakkom Moulavi Foundation. So I'll start with the oceanic world that Professor Menon has already set the framework. And also in Malayalam, we have this saying that if the cat falls, always it falls on 4 legs. For me, it is like, the oceanic dimension, oceanic history is always very important, no matter what kind of approach, or what kind of person or the sources that I look at. And in Vakkom Moulavi also we see Dilip set it very nicely, the kind of worlds that Moulavi was engaging. But this is also something that we see in the Indian in the writings or in different issues of Al-Islam, where he engaged on one side definitely with the Eastern Indian Ocean, with the Western Indian Ocean, Al-Manar, the connection, with Cairo, Arabia, Egypt, and so forth. That is something that very obvious. What is not so obvious is the Eastern Indian Ocean. And this is something, I think, I don't have many slides because most of my slides is already in Dilip's slides. So I thought I am not showing the whole Indian Ocean photos of Moulavi and so forth. But next to one, or next to next one. Yeah, this is the journal. Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll come back to this in a minute. Yeah, go on to the next slide. The last one. Yeah. here, this is a subscription fee for the Al-Islam Journal. Yeah. So here, I don't know, candidate Al-Islam Varisangya as a subscription fee for Al-Islam. And then he says that India, so for to different parts of India, the kind of subscription, the kind of fee that one has to pay, plus Ceylon. Yeah. So this is India ullil evideyum. So India, I think most of you would follow India ullil evideyum Ceylonilum oru kollathekku. So for 1 year anywhere in India as well as in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, it is 2 rupiga, so ka, and then no ana, no pai. And then for 1 month, oru masathekku 1 rupiga. And then what comes interesting is the Eastern Indian Ocean part that I would say is the Singapore Mudalaya Malaya Straitgalekku oru kollathekku. That is to the Malay Strait, including Singapore, the fee that is 2 rupiga, and then 8 ana, and no pai, and so forth. And what is interesting is that, I don't know if I put it in the next slide. No, so unfortunately no. He also has an advertisement for Muslim, the Malayalam version, the Malayalam journal, which doesn't have this Singapore Malaya part, which would, and it is only for inside India. That might mean that, either the Malayalis living, it doesn't, of course, doesn't mean that the Malayalis were not there in Malaya and Singapore, they were there. But at least the Muslims who were in Malaya and Singapore, they were reading mostly Arabic Malayalam version. And we know that from additional sources as well, because we have a lot of texts either funded by the Muslims from Kuala Lumpur, as well as ordering these books from Kuala Lumpur, from Saigon. We have a catalog of books, and then the publisher says that if you send these books, if we were to send these books to places like Saigon or Thailand or Malaya, you need to write your address very clearly without thinking that everyone would know you in the city. So just don't give only your name and then the place name. Rather, you should give it clearly. So that's sort of like a manifesto of the postal services to send these publications. This is something that we see. So we know from other Arabic Malayalam publications in the late 19th and early 20th century, there was a huge readership in the Malaya or in Southeast Asia region. Interestingly, not much so, at least among the Muslim community. We know that there were many Malayalam magazines being published, even in Japan, right? But also in Malaya, Malayalam journals were being published, but not necessarily. I don't know why his Al-Muslim doesn't include the advertisement for the subscriptions in the region. So the Almanar part, my whole point is that the Almanar part, that is the Western Indian Ocean or the Arabian Sea connection for Vakkom Moulavi is something that very obvious. What is less obvious is the Eastern connection. This is something that we come across all the time. And when I must mention all this, it's part of a wider world. Again, Yang Sung Ho's work is already mentioned, but also Roni Dritchi's Islam Translated, where she looks at the Arabic cosmopolis. She builds on Sheldon Pollock's Sanskrit cosmopolis. The major criticism that I would raise to the book is that even though it is about Arabic cosmopolis, there is nothing Arabic in that book, right? Unlike Pollock's work, which is very much on the Sanskrit cosmopolis, right? It is about Sanskrit. And he says that between 3rd and 13th century, Sanskrit was the lingua franca, shared language between South and Southeast Asia. And then by 13th century, the vernaculars emerged, in Southeast Asia as well as in South Asia. But in Arabic cosmopolis, it is about vernaculars. It is not about the Arabic languages. So she talks about the Malay, Javi, and Tamil, Arabi, these 3 languages in reference to one text, Seribu Masala or Airam Masala or 1,000 questions, and the translations of that. into different vernaculars, not much so on the Arabic per se. But what we see that, definitely the kind of vernaculars that engage with the Arabic script is very much what we see across the Eastern Indian Ocean as well as in the Western Indian Ocean. And this is something that we see in South Asia broadly. And on Arabic Malayalam, there has been a lot of work in the last 20 years or so. Professor M.H. Ilyas has published a very extensive overview of the different Arabic Malayalam tradition, along with Dr. Shamshad Hussain. And many other scholars have lately been publishing different volumes as well as articles on Arabic Malayalam, mainly looking at the Malabar region. We don't know much about the Travancore, the princely state. And Moulavi himself was, built his conversation with the Arabic Malayalam, with the kind of Malayalam or Arabic Malayalam tradition in the Malabar region itself. So if we go back to the here, here you see the different kind of scripts that he uses, and this is something that fascinates me all the time. Not just here, but like generally the kind of different scripts that people would use. So here you have a classic Naskhi scale script, and then this is a sort of Nastalic script right here. And then after that, you have what we would identify as Ponnani Lipi, or the Ponnani script, something that became controversial, I think 2-3 years ago, when a minister of Kerala tried to smuggle in something. So this is the script, Ponnani Lipi. So Ponnani Lipi being the specific script possibly evolved in this place called Ponnani, which is often identified as the Cheru Mecca or Little Mecca, or the Mecca of South India, because of not because of its sacrality, but rather it's about the educational or the intellectual fervor that the place had. So there he uses the Ponnani script, and then the Arabic part, it has a Arabic part. Yeah, so the Arabic part he uses very much like a standard Arabic script, Nastalic or Arabic script, where the later one, and his own name he writes it in the like sort of Nastalic Nast script, but then later the Malayalam part, when he says Vakkom Tiruvidankur, he falls back onto the, which is like a very vernacular name, Tiruvidankur. Of course, you can write that in Arabic also, but then when you write it, especially the nga, I'm not going, getting into the linguistic part of it, but it is interesting why he uses the local script instead of the larger script. And the Arabic Malayalam definitely has a very significant gender dimension. So in line with his broader efforts to promote social, religious, and ethical revival in Travancore in southwest India, Vakkom Abdul Qadir Moulavi launched 2 magazines, Muslim and Al-Islam, addressing the Muslim community. In the cover pages of the first issue, so this is what we have. That is the first part, and then these are sort of like maximized parts. The sublines read that it is a monthly newspaper book. So in the second part, you can see here, Oru Masiga Patra Grandam. Yeah? You could only say Masiga, or you can say only Patram, or you can say only a Grandam. But he uses, Oru Masiga Patra Grandam here, which is, in Arabic, he writes only Majalla. Yeah, Majalla Diniya, Ijtamaiya, Akhlaqiyya. And in English, a religious, social, and review. So, and that is mainly in reference in conversation with the Islamic Review that was being published in London, more or less around the same time, in the early 20th century. And he translates some of the publications from Islamic Review from London in 1910 and so forth, especially on the question of women and women repression, into Arabic Malayalam, and publishes this. So the English part of the title comes from the Islamic Review, a famous journal of that period. And then he says that This is a journal published in the Malabari language and Arabic Malayalam script. Here, if you look at, that is also interesting. Bil-Lughatil Malabariya, in Arabic, he says that Bil-Lughatil Malabariya it means the Malabari language, which is Malayalam. Bi-Huruf Arabi Malayalam, with the Arabic Malayalam script. And that is a major problem that I have with him. And that is also sort of ideology that he proposes throughout the book, and also something that his readers criticize him because he's misunderstanding what actually Arabic Malayalam is, I would argue. I'll come to that in a minute. But which is something that he didn't translate in the Arabic Malayalam part. So he didn't say this is the Malayalam, because it's sort of. But here again he translates this in Malayalam language and in Arabic Malayalam characters, the exact translation of the Arabic part. In the opening editorial of the journal, he says that only if there is a general awareness among the Malayala Muslims, so not Malayali Muslims, but Malayala Muslims, about the necessity to reform, parishkaram, this is something that comes up throughout his works. The Shojaniya, the poor or deprived conditions in their communal and religious realms, there would be attempts towards, there's attempts among them widely. With these aims in mind, Moulavi says that he initially started Muslim, the journal, as a monthly, but after a few years, he realized that it is not creating any influence among the community, apart from a small minority who were standing at their forefront. And he defines this minority as those who dealt with the new education, Navina Vidyabhyasumai idapettulla alkar, and those who engaged with the new reforms, Navina Parishkarumai Tattittullavar. The rest of the Muslim community do not use any Malayalam writings except for the correspondences or documentations related to the court proceedings or livelihood matters such as trade. And that's when only they use the Malayalam, so the Aryan Earth, I would say. He writes further that some among them still believes that it is blasphemous to write subjects related to religion in Malayalam letters, while most of those who consider themselves as holders of religious positions cannot read these letters at all. So the Aryan Libi, Vaikan Thanne Kazhiyilla. And therefore the magazines and the newspapers published only in Malayalam would not make any impact among all the people in the community. The experience has taught him in hard way. In contrast to this, not only that nobody has any objection for reading anything written in Arabic Malayalam, because of the similarity in writing style with the Arabic language, it also occurs almost the same veneration as Arabic language. Most people, especially women, are used to reading the Arabic Malayalam. Furthermore, all the reforms of Muslims must be centered on religion. So religion is a very core part of his whole overall idea. An Arabic Malayalam letter is very comfortable and most useful to write religious subjects. For all these reasons, we thought it would be great to start a monthly Masiga titled Al-Islam in Arabic Malayalam letter, and we advertised this in the Muslim magazine, the Malayalam version, in order to see how much abhiruchi or taste or interest in the community has in this. Even after publishing the advertisement in several issues of Al-Muslim, there was no any response. And then he thought to himself, probably because he advertised the Arabic Malayalam journal in Malayalam characters, that is why possibly no one noticed it. And then he published the advertisement in Arabic Malayalam in Al-Muslim. I don't know, I haven't seen the Al-Muslim. It would be very interesting to see if they published Arabic Malayalam advertisement in Al-Muslim. He says that he did, which garnered some response, yet not so much. Still, they could not publish it sooner without enough subscribers because of the huge hikes in paper prices, a usual complaint among the editors and publishers. Yet they begin to publish it due to the support of many well-wishers. Okay, great. So in the essay titled Our Woman, Nammude Sthreegal, in the first issue, he writes that while we were notice advertising about Al-Islam, a gentleman who is proud of the community. In one of the letters he used to send us, he had written that we should publish without any gaps topics related to the progress of women, Scribal Uyarcha. And we should spare some pages specifically for this in every issue. Seeing this, we became very happy about the awareness being germinated here and there among the community about the necessity to improve women's status. And we replied by thanking him for his advice and accepting it. And then he goes on to explain why it is important to write in Malayalam, especially to address the Arabic Malayalam audience among the women. And he says that unless and until the status of men are raised, and I don't personally agree to this, but I don't know about you. But he says that unless and until the status of men are raised, the status of women would not be improved. If men's status are raised, women's status would not go unraised or unimproved. I have heard a great man who has among us saying that this opinion is very much true. So basically, he says that the progress of women is dependent on the progress of men. And women would not, I am quoting him here, women would not think or feel that they should achieve any better position different from their own men. I don't know whether the woman here would agree or men would agree. Many wouldn't, but yet for his time, he argues for the improvement of women's equal status not only in religious education, religious instruction, but also in other worldly affairs, as well as in emotional, physical, and social spheres as well. And he goes on to say why the religion and the world, religious studies and the worldly studies should not be separated from one another. And then he goes specifically on the question of writing, handwriting, kayakshanam. So this is a long controversy among the Muslims, whether the woman should be allowed or not allowed to study writing. And this is something that he comes back and again with his readers in connection with, in a contestation with a Moulavi from Ponnani. So he builds this directly connecting gender with the questions of writing and religion. He does so with a criticism against women's education on the basis of a fabricated hadith, saying of the Prophet that women should not be taught writing, while the necessity of education for women in both religious and worldly affairs are at most necessary. He writes that while things are like this, what is the purpose of some people making noise in such a way that blocks all progress of women, holding on to a hadith that should not be taught, that women should not be taught handwriting. Yanal, this hadith, on top of that, the ulama of the hadith have declared this as a hadith da'if, or a weak hadith, or fabricated hadith. It is opposed to by another hadith sahih, or a strong, valid hadith that doesn't have any akshebam or any problem with this veracity. And this hadith says that women should be taught writing, and goes on to the other areas. In the interest of time, I have only 1 minute, therefore I'll skip to the last part, which is, three things that I would like to emphasize by way of concluding remarks. These are not conclusions per se, because it's only a preliminary work. Definitely the Indian Ocean framework is very much centered to the, not only the Almanar or other publications that he had, but even for the Arabic Malayalam audience that he had in mind. And the second part is the scribal practices among the Muslims and the ways in which he addressed and bridged the gap between the Malabar and Travancore. So on one side, we have the two arms of the Indian Ocean, the eastern and the western of the Travancore. And then the other part is the internal, within the subcontinent or within the Kerala, how he engages, through the scribal traditions, how he engages with this community. But also in some polemical debates with the Moulavi of Ponnani, who eventually writes saying that he doesn't have any connection with Ponnani. Moulavi from Chadamangalam writes to Al-Islam, and Vakkom Moulavi saying that even though some people accuse him that he has some connection with Ponnani, Ponnani being this sacred sort of, important place. But he himself saying that, he doesn't have any connection. And the most important criticism that I have for the Arabic Malayalam. And this is not only my criticism, but also some of the readers of Moulavi wrote to him saying that his Arabic Malayalam is not Arabic Malayalam, rather it's a Sanskritized Malayalam. So, and this is something that also Maktitangal, we see that like they want to bring the Malayali Muslims or Kerala Muslims into this Sanskrit or even Brahmanical fold of the what is to be a Malayali or Parishkrita Malayali. And therefore, misunderstands Arabic Malayalam only as characters and not as a language, in which, as Dilip mentioned, many other languages, not just Sanskrit. Sanskrit is one of the several languages that contributed to Arabic Malayalam, but Urdu, Persian, Arabic, and so forth. All of these are, and then his readers are complaining that they don't understand. They can't read what is in there. And then he gives a 3-page reply saying that why you should learn Sanskritized Malayalam, not the Arabic Malayalam the way it used to exist. With this, I conclude. Thank you very much.